All right, everyone. This is Justin Burgess here. This is episode 25.9 from Burnout to Balance. I'm going to just talk about my life story, about how I got in the insurance business, how I was burnt out, and kind of how I just changed my whole life perspective once I lost 50 pounds. So let's get into it. So today we're going to go into the original story of how I got into the insurance business. And I kind of told this briefly on the Andy Neary Accelerate Your Insurance Sales podcast as well. So fresh out of college, I had no clue what I wanted to do in life. I was in college. I was in banking. I was only in banking because it was literally on the campus of my college, and it paid for some tuition. It paid for parking. So it was kind of like a win-win at the time. And I grew up in a family business, so I know I wanted to do something business related. And I was on Work Knoll just applying for jobs randomly and saw insurance associate and kind of just took it. Applied, didn't really do well in the interview, and ultimately ended up getting the job because of a connection to a local high school that my boss at the time knew that I went to. So he kind of gave me a shot. And early on, we were just, remember a story, he was like, I don't know what you're going to do here, but we'll figure it out. And in the early years, it was, everything was on paper. You're still doing a lot of things manually. And today we're obviously in a technology age where you have online enrollments and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier to do your job. But early on, I was just figuring out the insurance business, and it's not something that I thought I would enjoy doing long term because it is super stressful. But at the end of the day, it's a very rewarding career. So, I spent the first almost 9 years of my career at that company. It was called Benefit Administration Group. He actually sold out to a company called NFP, which acquired us. And so I spent about half my time with a local agency, half my time with a large national agency. So I got to kind of see both sides of the equation. Mixed in 2020, we also had COVID during that time period. So that's where I'm going to start with the burnout of the business. And I was getting burnt out. It was very obvious. We were losing employees. We were losing morale. Just the work pressure and constant everything's a fire. It got to me. And we also had COVID in there, so I was dealing with that. I also had my first son, Brooks, and like I say, I got married at that company, bought my first house, got my MBA there, had my first son. So I did a lot of things in that company. So it was very, very special and important to me. But ultimately, you get to a point where your head's not in it anymore, and my head wasn't in it for a very long time, and. We ended up parting ways, which was ironically a blessing for me in disguise. I knew I wanted to go into production or sales. They call salespeople in my business producers, so I know I wanted to be a producer because that's the only way you can make money in this business, unfortunately. You can make a very good living being an account executive, account associate, but if you want to make a lot of money, you have to be a producer, and that comes with additional stress of now it's all sales, all production, and it's just go, go, go. But during the 2020 period, after I had my son, I remember calling my father one day, and I was like, hey, just, give me some advice on, having your first child, and how does that impact your just morale and, your body. And he's like, son, go get your blood work checked. He's like, you haven't done it in a while. Just go get your blood work checked, ask for these things. And, I went to my regular PCP, and they only do a basic blood screen, and like nothing's fine. He's like, no, you need to go to a men's hormone clinic, get your blood work checked out. And I did that, and I was very low on testosterone. Like I think my range was, I think a healthy adult my age is like the 300 to 400 range. I think I was in the low twos, like 180, 190 if I remember. And I remember talking to the doctor. He's like, hey, I normally don't supplement young people with testosterone, but it sounds like you need it. Obviously, you can raise your testosterone by eating healthy and lose a bunch of weight. But, if you want to feel immediate effects now, we recommend doing this. And obviously, that comes with a lot of risk down the road. But it's something that I'm glad I did because that kind of kick-started me into this whole weight loss journey and taking care of my body. This was right around when the Ozempic Mounjaro also started to kick off as well. So I was doing testosterone for probably about 6 months. Then went to my doctor, just said, hey, I'm still, feeling like I'm there, but my weight's obviously not really dropping a whole lot. as I thought. You've seen a lot of people take testosterone and they lose a bunch of weight, and it's not how it really works. He's like, hey, we have this new drug. It's there's a manufacturer's coupon. We can get it to you for basically $0. And I tried it, and I did it for about a year and a half, and that's how I ultimately lost all this weight. Was taking Mounjaro, which I'm blessed that I did that. And obviously, it's got a whole different stigma around it right now, and I'm not taking it currently. But I went from 250 to my lowest was 180, and I didn't really like being 180. It was too skinny for me. I'm personally sitting around 200 right now, which is a perfect number for me. And it's also not about the weight number on the scale for me. It's about the feeling good in your body, feeling mentally healthy, and being present for your family and friends and your children. But that was something that definitely changed the course of my business career, is that it gave me a mental edge that I desperately needed in life. So I'm kind of a big advocate for weight loss drugs. Obviously, I'm not an advocate for employers paying for it. I think it's a very much a gray area, and a lot of providers are finding ways to trick the insurance systems to get it approved for weight loss. But I think there's a ton of sources out there. You can buy it and purchase it legally, and dose it yourself if you want to. Obviously, you can go to these wellness clinics and do it as well. Sometimes it's very pricey that way. But I recommend to everybody listening, just get your blood work checked. You don't know what's going on with your body. And obviously, when you go to your primary care visits for your wellness visit, they're just doing the bare minimum. They're not really looking to, give you anything. I mean, they don't have enough time. That's the problem with healthcare right now, is that your primary care doctor spends more time typing on a computer than they do actually giving you care. And that's the frustrating part to most people. But that alone gave me the edge to kind of challenge myself professionally. So, I joined BenPro about 2 years ago, and at that time, my wife was 3 months pregnant with our daughter Harper, and the motivation to kind of succeed in business was purely that. I went from a very comfortable situation at NFP to a very uncomfortable situation here, and it was just because, obviously, being in production, that's the uncomfortable part about it. But I remember talking to Sean Torres over at Intellicom, and before I signed the deal, he's like, "Look, you got to do it. This is the only way you got to be, uncomfortable to get comfortable, essentially." And it kind of stuck with me when he told me the story of how he started Intellicom. They didn't make any money until like 3-4 years into the business, and even since then, they were reinvesting it back into the business. And I'm thankful that he gave me that push, because I don't know if I would have done it otherwise. But in the first 2 years of me being a producer, I think I have 25 clients right now and a very good book of business, and I'm happy. And the reason I'm kind of doing this podcast right now is it brings me joy at the end of the day. It brings me something to look forward to. And the problem with the insurance business, it's such a dated model, and people like doing things the same old way. And I was talking to my coach, Andy Neary, a couple days ago, and he stopped me. We were having a conversation. He's like, "Justin, are you having fun?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "That's what's more important. It's, are you having fun? Because you don't want to go back to your head where you were in 2020, where you were not having fun." And the reason I'm having fun is because I don't feel like I'm selling anybody anything. I feel like I'm educating somebody. And that's what's important to me. And that's what's valuable to me, is that I am educating my clients on how the industry is corrupt and crooked. And it's not their fault. It's the industry. It's not the insurance carrier's fault either. It's just the system of how healthcare is designed from the top down. And that starts with the government, starts with the hospital systems, starts with the PBMs, the pharmaceutical companies. It's the whole supply chain. And my pitch to employers is, every aspect of your supply chain. For Intellicom, they buy phone systems, and they know, well, if this phone system's X and this one's 3 times X or 10 times X, well, we're not going to recommend that to our clients, because these phone systems can basically do the same thing. The secret sauce behind it is the Intellicom customer support people, not the actual phone system. And that's the important part. But, they're not going to recommend something to their clients that is 10 times the cost. And the reason I'm using that example, because that's what happens in the pharmaceutical industry, is that, employers are getting sued right now because they're drugs. Their PBM is allowing a drug to be paid by the plan for like $3,000, where you can go get it at Mark Cuban for like $10 for that same drug. And that's what's frustrating employers and employees is they're just fed up with the system of how healthcare is designed. And once you give people information, that's how they're going to succeed. So I think about the Amazons of the world and all these other online resources where you can easily search for items online. You can find things relatively cheaply and quickly if you just, do a quick Google search. There's also a site that I heard online as well. It's called, if you just type dupe, DUPE dot, whatever the website URL is, you could find the dupes for furniture or clothing. And this company basically created an aggregator for all these different products, which is super cool. But the main goal of me as a producer is to just educate. Once you give people tools and resources that they can search for drugs and, find it cheaper, or they have an advocate to reach out to, or they have someone like Dean at Fair Market Health where they can basically, hey, if I need an MRI, they'll go plop it into Dean's platform and I can search what the cost is. That's what we need for healthcare. We don't need deductibles that are $3,000 to $5,000. That's not going to do anything for somebody. We need, because what's going to happen when you have a $5,000 deductible? You need a knee surgery. Well, you're going to have to pay your deductible. It's $5,000. Well, what if that knee surgery or MRI costs less than that? It does. That's the problem. They're just going to, they want to overbill the insurance carriers because they can, when they're not going to charge the fair and appropriate price of that service. And I want to just talk about balance too for a second. So a lot of this, from burnout to balance is what I'm titling this episode. And you got to find balance in your life and in your business side. Being in production, it's hard to spend your time from 9 to 5 doing everything, like 10 times being productive. For me, so I find my balance in the CrossFit side of my life too. So I make it a point every day to do something active, whether that's walking around my house or block around my house if I have some meetings lined up, or have my home gym at my house as well. But I joined CrossFit because of the community side of it. And that was something I desperately needed. When you work from home, you don't have the same environment that you do as working in an office. My office is about 45 minutes north of me, and it's a little bit of a trek for me, just with picking up kids and dropping off kids in the morning. And I'm a little more comfortable at my home office just because I got a little bit nicer setup that's very customized to me over the years. Got my standing desk, got my dual monitors, got everything. It makes me super happy. But you got to find balance, and for me, that was CrossFit. So I've been doing CrossFit for about 2 years, and it's changed my life completely. So early on, Justin Mertens is a good friend. We've been playing hockey for a very long time. I just remember sending him a DM saying, hey, I'm getting better at pull-ups. Anything you can coach me on to get better at this? And we were going back and forth, and he's like, hey, just come on a Saturday. We do partner workouts on every Saturday. I think I paired up with John, actually. John's the other owner. So Joette, John, and Joette are the 3 owners of CrossFit Gree, and they have since become very good friends of mine. I think I'm there more than I'm anywhere else because they're just very welcoming and comforting people. But I remember that first partner workout. It was very scary, nervous. Felt like a little kid again, where I don't know anybody, and obviously I've gotten more comfortable and everybody starts messing with me, and that's how you know you're in the club, when people start messing with you in a good way. But the community side of CrossFit and what's that done to my mental health side of it is, I think everybody just needs a friend group that's outside of their business and their family or relationship friend group. And my wife is very supportive of me, and so is my mother-in-law, so is my mom, so is my father. But having a group of strangers that are 110% supportive of you is awesome and amazing for someone that has had self-doubt, fear, self-conscious about my body sometimes. Um, but, I post the podcast, I post my stuff on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything. And they're the first ones to like it. They're the first ones to make a comment about it. And that's what's kind of gotten to me recently, is that a group of strangers that have only known you for a couple of years is one of your biggest advocates in life. And that's just because of the community. Well, I'm at City Park right now. They have a bike club that comes and bikes at 5:00. That's a community. They have a volleyball people that play over there as well. They got some guys that play soccer. That's a community. So I'm just advocating for men and women as we get older in life to have a community that's going to make you not get to that burnout stage in your life. And I think that's what people need, is we get so focused in our career early on because we want to rise to the top very quickly, but then we get burnt out. Then we lose the touch of doing something fun and active together. And, if that's for you, that's Pokemon and Dungeons and Dragons. I don't care what it is. It's whatever makes you happy. And at the end of the day, you have a group of friends that you do it with. That's all I care about. But no, I'm definitely excited to share my journey with people and continue this building a brand part of my life. And I go into it with no one's going to watch these videos, no one's going to listen to it, but all I need is one person to watch this video, to hear my message, to say that I'm doing hard things in my life right now because I never want to go backwards. And when you hire me as your consultant to manage your health plan, I'm not afraid to do the hard things at all. Like I said, my father, we grew up in a family business, Sid Mar's restaurant, seafood restaurant. Gumbo was our thing. Well, what do you eat with gumbo? Crackers. Cracker wrappers would go flying around the restaurant because we'd have to have the fans on because it's 100 degrees outside New Orleans. Well, he would always go around picking up the trash. Why? Because that just was his mindset, is picking up the trash. And I take that into my business, is that I'm not afraid to do the little things in the business. But I do want to be a consultant that is high level, that is engaged, and that understands how healthcare is designed and how we can ultimately lower your cost. And like I said on the Andy Neary podcast, if you want to do something hard, you got to put in the work. And it's the same with your health plan. If you want to see results of lowering your costs, you got to put in the work, i.e., managing your high cost specialty drugs, lumping in a DPC that's going to help giving access to employees to easy, transparent care, and that's going to be taking claims off your health plan, or just giving people a nurse advocate that when they are dealing with a high cost issue, that they have a nurse that's on their side. Yes, insurance carriers have nurses, but that's not in favor of the employee or the employer. That's in favor of the carrier. So, I'm just advocating that employees need resources at the end of the day. And you need someone like me to kind of build all the pieces together, because what the major insurance carriers do for you is convenience. If you're fully insured, you're paying the carrier premium, and they're giving you a guarantee for 12 months, and they're giving you some stock services that are embedded in their plan. However, when you go to a self-funded model, you have to basically build all the pieces around it. And there's easy models like a Crumdale, especially, that has a easy to do self-funded model. Then you can go fully unbundled, where you can basically pick your own TPA, you can pick your network, you can go reference-based pricing if you don't want a network. You can do a dual option. You also get to pick your PBM. So if you want to work with Welldone, Smith RX, whoever it is, you get to pick your vendors. The reason I think that's important for people is because we need transparency among our vendors. If you want to hire anybody in your business, what are you going to do? You're going to get 3 or 4 quotes. You're going to say, hey, we need our printer's acting up. We need to sign a new lease. Let's go see what's out in the market. And that's how it should be in the healthcare space, is like, hey, PBM 1's this, PBM 2's this, PBM 3 is this. Also, you can work with PBM consultants that will go to the market for you and help you with all the contract language, et cetera. But regardless, if anyone is listening at this point, my last words to everyone is just transparency and advocacy are the 2 things that I fight for. Transparency, 1, meaning that everybody that works for your health plan should be transparent, i.e. the broker and all the vendors. And advocacy is just, at the end of the day, we're advocating for you and your employees. At the end of the day, the people that are making decisions for your employees are the ones that are making the most money. And the average salary, I believe it's like $42,000 a year in the United States. So you're telling me that most people will pick a $5, $6, $7,000 deductible plan for someone making $42,000 a year that's going to get taxed on that. That also has expenses and childcare and just living basic life. They can't afford healthcare. And that's what I'm advocating for, is that I get fed up that when we tell a single mom with 2 kids that doesn't qualify for Medicaid because she makes too much money, that we're sticking her with a $5,000 deductible plan. And that's her cheapest option for healthcare. I think that's BS. And that's the person that I'm advocating for, because that's the person that I feel for, is making the decision between groceries and getting access to care. And we all know people that do that, is they delay care because they can't afford it. So if we give them free resources for healthcare, they're going to ultimately change their patterns, and they're going to get healthier over time. And it can be done. We can give people free healthcare at a low cost. So thank y'all for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. I have my next episode is going to be with a pharmacist. We're just going to go over how the PBM industry is affecting local pharmacies. So cheers. Bye.